Alrighty, congratulations IBers in having your biology final exam completed. I've graded them. Here I've got a spreadsheet of breakdowns for multiple choice, short answer, option D questions, and the essay as well as totals. We've got a nice spread of 7s, 6s, 5s, 4s, and 3s with an average of 5.2. In addition, we've got the grade boundaries from 2013 and the SL grade boundaries from 2013. So if you want to look at this more closely, you can pause this video at this point. You'll notice that I don't have your names associated with any of these scores, and that's because I'd like to go through the test first in two parts before I give you your individual scores. So I'm going to ask that you watch these videos, and then I'll give you some instructions as to how to get your scores on your final exams. All right, so moving on, let's talk multiple choice. So the first issue that we encountered was with a question that wasn't even a question. This question right here did not have a number. This was a sneaky number 3. All right, and the question is, what is naked DNA? The vast majority of you guys wrote that it's DNA not surrounded by a nuclear envelope. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The correct answer was actually C, DNA not associated with protein. So tough question, very specific, but this question, as with the entire test, was taken from the exam that the seniors just completed. So this is the copy of the exam that the seniors just completed. Again, the correct answer here was C. People did fairly well on the next question, and then moving on to the next page, folks really struggled with this question. It asks, how many cells are in metaphase? Now, the first thing you need to look at is which cells have a nuclear envelope and which cells don't. Because if they have a nuclear envelope, that immediately discounts them and means that they're in prophase or still in interphase. So all of these cells here, for example, are not in metaphase. Most of these cells here are not in metaphase. A lot of these cells here are not in metaphase, and so on and so forth. So we want to look for chromosomes which have lined up along the metaphase plate. And so right off the bat, this one catches my attention. And then I see one right here, and then I see one right here, for a total of 3. So the correct answer to number 4, which is actually number 5, is 3. All right, moving on. Number 11 was really tough for lots of folks, and that's understandable. The question asks, which DNA has identical base pair sequences? Now you've got a couple of different options here. You can go with the mitosis options, or you can go with the meiosis options, or you can go with a mix of both. But you got to think about what are the overall goals of mitosis and meiosis. With mitosis, you're trying to produce identical copies of the same cells. With meiosis, you're trying to produce different or genetically diverse gametes. So when you see identical, you should always associate that with mitosis. And so the correct answer is A. Scrolling down, people did fairly well on 12 and 13. So I'm going to move on to this last page of the multiple choice section. So everyone did fairly well on 14, which was actually 15, and they struggled a little bit, I should say, with this question right here. How can forensic scientists obtain sufficient data from one hair follicle to make a reliable identification by DNA profiling? And so the question is getting at, how can we take the DNA in this single hair follicle and make more of it before we begin the process of gel electrophoresis? And so the only technique that allows us to do that is the use of PCR. And so the correct answer for 15 is A, by performing PCR, the polymerase chain reaction, with DNA from the sample. Then I can utilize restriction enzymes, and then I can use gel electrophoresis. 16 also gave folks a hard time. It asks, corn can be genetically modified to kill corn-boring insects when they eat the corn. Why is the use of genetically modified crops opposed by environmentalists? This is very specific, but it comes directly from the assessment statements in 4.4. And the correct answer is butterflies, or the caterpillars that eventually turn into butterflies, eat the corn pollen and they could be killed. So the correct answer is D. And then last but not least, this was a heck of a question. What is a plasmid? A plasmid is a circular piece of DNA that is separate from a prokaryote's chromosome. Another tough question, but it was on the exam this year, so I wanted you to be aware of it. Stay tuned. I'll put out a second video for the short answers, option D and essay. The first part of your response, and you can reply to this in comments, or you can email me directly, is what's your favorite pizza topping? And I'm going to give you a second question to answer at the end of my second video. So if you answer what's your favorite pizza topping and then the second question, either as a reply to this post or in a direct email, I'll then respond with an email with your test score, if that makes sense. So first part, what's your favorite pizza topping?